It's 2025 and it's the time to update your skills on how to prepare for your OSCE examinations for the CMTO registration exams. So if you're ready, let's get started. Hi, my name is Steph, the massage therapist, and like what I told you, we are going to be focusing on how you can prepare for your OSCE examinations from Station 1 to Station 7. Again, I'm going to be using the handbook available. It may have some revisions along the line because I haven't seen the new handbook updated. There's no 2025 yet. But the skills that I'm going to be teaching you is not just for the 2024. It's something that you can do not only in preparing for OSCE, but also in preparing in real-life scenarios once you pass your RMT registration exams. So before that, I would like you to inhale and exhale. Relax and get some water. Like me, take a sip. And let's start. Now, I have here a piece of whiteboard. And whatever is in this whiteboard, we are going to use to discuss the stations. Everything, every skill and examples, I'm going to be explaining in this blank whiteboard right here. So you know that we're making it fresh. Yes, fresh at its finest. You might look at me and my beautiful face right now and see that I'm going to be looking towards the screen here because I have the handbook open here so that I have the things I need when explaining it to you. So please get your pens and books and pencils, iPads, iPad pens, and let's get started. I'm not going to go nitty-gritty on all the aspects of the exam, but what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be focusing on what they are asking and what they describe and how they describe each station would look like. And we are going to start with station number 1, which is the therapeutic exercise. Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. I'm gonna put the link down below of the student the handbook. See the prometric handbook for you so that you can read it. It's on page 8, and I will update this once the new handbook comes up. Okay, but for now, we're gonna be using this. I'm gonna read this verbatim. So if you are reading this, go to page 8 and check it out. In this station, candidate must demonstrate knowledge of 5 therapeutic exercises that, okay, I wrote it here, 5 therapeutic exercises, and the list of exercises provided includes a combination, so it's a combo of stretching, okay, stretching, strengthening, okay, put it here, stretching, strengthening, range of motion techniques, okay, and it says here that, gonna put a bracket here, each exercise, okay, each exercise should target the primary actions for the muscle provided. So target, muscle, double MM means muscle, provided. And generally tasks may be performed in any order. Performed in any order, okay, we have that. Performed in any order, and the candidate will be instructed to use specific form of resistance. So it means there is an equipment. So let's put it here. Equipment. And what are the equipments? We have the ankle weight. Okay, we have the ankle weight, dumbbell, resistance band. Okay, what else is in here? Resistance band, even the body weight is included. Okay, even the body weight is included. Okay, and other equipments. They mentioned other equipments. There is also an exercise mat. Okay, there's also an exercise mat. If you want to use it on the floor, a chair, okay, a towel, and a massage table. So that's something that you have to think about, okay? For exercises that occur in the limb, the candidate is not required to perform the tasks bilaterally. Remember that? So I'm going to put here, perform unilaterally. candidate is required to perform the task bilaterally. The client is dressed in exercise-appropriate attire. The client has already given informed consent, including written consent when appropriate, so that the candidate can proceed with the required task. Whatever I wrote in this board is actually the things that you should remember when doing Station 1, because it helps you study accordingly. Now, they said they're gonna give the test in combo. So they might give you 2 stretches, 2 strengthening, range of motion, or even PNF. So they might give you something of these: stretching, strengthening, range of motion. And the good thing is, I don't want you to stress out because, oh my God, I have to memorize all stretching and strengthening of each muscle. Yes, I do understand that. But remember, each exercise has a target muscle provided. Okay? Meaning to say, you don't have to show a specific type of exercise. For example, cat-cow, or child's pose, or squats, something like that. I mean, you can perform it, sure, but when in doubt, you can use this one as your saving grace. So based on what I see here, reason is, every muscle belongs to one group. And that group gives you one, okay? Gives you one primary action. Let me give you an example. Quads, quadriceps group, vastus lateralis, intermedialis, medialis, as well as rectus femoris. Those muscles, they do one primary action, which is extension of the knee, except the rectus femoris because of its origin. But the fact is, you can target all of those muscles with using one action. So are you here with me? Meaning to say, if you know which muscle you're going to treat or you're going to give an exercise and you know which group it belongs, you can give a targeted exercise using that muscle group. I'm going to give you an example later. Another thing is they're talking about the range of motion. I think this is something that you should take with a grain of salt. This is not the assessment. It's more maybe of dynamic stretching. Okay? By the way, don't take my word for this one 100%. Reason being is, there's a lot of ways to perform exercises under range of motion. So the reason why I'm just saying it's probably a dynamic stretching, because when you perform dynamic stretching, you mimic each movement. So if you want to do abduction of the shoulder, then you're also going to do abduction of the shoulder, right? Like the range of motion. So my suggestion on this is to obviously review your range of motion. Now, they also mentioned that there's a use of equipment, ankle weight, dumbbell, and resistance band, as well as your body weight. Meaning to say, you are not going to look for multiple exercises because you kind of have it already. You can just search for exercises that has ankle weight, exercises that utilizes dumbbells, exercises that utilizes resistance bands, and body weight. Another thing that you should take into consideration is that they have other materials like the exercise mat, the chair, the towel, and the massage table that you can utilize. So if you want to be creative on how you perform each targeted muscle exercises, then you have all of this equipment to play on. Now, let's proceed to the strategy, because now you know what's inside the actual station. You can pause the video, take a picture, or go to page 8 of the handbook. Again, if you're watching this and the handbook did change, I will update the link in the description below. Okay? So now let's talk about strategy. Okay? Let's discuss Station 1, study strategy. Strategy. I would give you a quick way of remembering the actions of each muscle. Yes, I kind of discovered this when I was studying for my own exams. I think it's brilliant, and I love it when I'm going to be showing this to you. So let me become Leonardo da Vinci for a sec. Let me draw a human being. I don't know how, but let's say this person would have a head for sure. They would have a neck, okay? Then they're going to have a shoulder. Okay, they're going to have an elbow. They're going to have a hand. Okay? Sorry for the okay, let me fix it. Okay? Then they're going to have a torso. They're going to have a pelvis. They're going to have a leg. Okay, of course. Then they're going to have a knee. That's their knee, and this is their feet. My God, my art skills, right? This would be what we call the anterior side. Now let's make the same thing, but now on posterior side. So again, we're gonna have, for posterior side, we are going to have a head, for sure. The same thing, the neck. Okay, we have the arms, the shoulder, the elbow. There we go. Yep. Then we have the trunk. Then we have the hips. Let's put the glutes there. I don't know how to do glutes, but let's claim that that's glutes. Then we have the legs. That's the feet in the front. Okay? Now, this is going to be your posterior. Now, hear me out. In the body, okay, in the body, we have this imaginary line that is called the midline, which divides the body in the middle, okay? Pardon me for my very straight line, but I am going to put a midline in this beautiful piece of art that I have. Perfect. Now, the orange line that you see on the screen is basically the center of the body. The way my technique works to remember which actions these muscle groups are working goes like this. It heavily relies on this orange line. Now that we have this beautiful drawing, let me show you how I would remember all the muscle groups using this diagram that's embedded in my brain. Let's start first with anterior and posterior, and let's put a legend here. Here, I have here two pens. I have here the purple and the green one. Everything that's lined up with purple is doing flexion, and whatever is highlighted in green will be extension. So again, purple will be flexion, okay? And then green would be extension. Please remember it. When you're looking at the patient's anterior side, your neck, the anterior neck muscles, your anterior forearm, right? Anterior forearm, the arm and the wrist, even the fingers, all of these that I'm highlighting right now, okay? Not just that, but including the trunk itself, all the way to the hip, okay? As you can visualize it. Yeah, everything of that group of muscles, whatever muscles are located in this one, will be doing flexion. I'm going to give an example. Biceps brachii. What's the action? It's flexion, right? Now, where does it belong? Anterior or posterior? Anterior. Let me tell you. Forearm flexors. Where do they belong? Anterior or posterior? Yes. Anterior. Your scalene muscles or your platysma or your SEM is in the front, right? So now, what will be the action? If you answered flexion, then you are correct. So now, what's going to happen at the posterior side? Because these ones are anterior, whatever I'm coloring on green, as you can see right now, arms, even the fingers, basically just the opposite of the flexion. Everything I'm coloring here, including the trunk and the glutes, all of these things, is doing extension. Let me ask you, what's the action of triceps? Yeah? Tell me what? Huh? Yes, extension. How about the wrist extensors? Extension also. How about the spine at the back? Extension also. Okay? Now, Steph, why is the knee not included? Because it's the opposite. Now, there's a grain of salt that you need to understand for this one, okay? Now, the thing is, for example, rectus femoris, that's going to be around here, they would also do flexion, but then again, there are more muscles in the front of the leg that does extension of the knee. So again, green for extension and purple for flexion. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna be opposite for the knee. So whatever I'm coloring here will be extension of the knee. And then the opposite side of it, the hamstrings would do the same. Yeah? So as you can see here in the diagram, you would see green, meaning extension, and it makes sense because the quadriceps group is doing extension of the knee as one of its primary actions. Well, except the rectus femoris, but most of it is extension of the knee. Meanwhile, for the hamstrings component, biceps femoris, semitendinosus, and semimembranosus, they're all doing flexion of the knee. Yes, the upper parts of it are doing extension of the hip, but again, if you're going to group things together, you can also still go with flexion of the knee. Isn't this amazing? Yeah. I would say that just in case there would be an overlap, I'm going to highlight it yellow. There would be an overlap around here and around this one. The one that I encircled yellow, because again, some of the origins are still technically close to this joint that we're talking about. Now, how about the gastrocs and the tibialis in the front? Simple. You know what? I'm not going to use purple and green. I'm going to use red and pink. Okay? Red stands for plantar flexion, and then pink signifies dorsiflexion. Okay, you're still with me? Whatever I'm coloring right now, we'll be doing dorsiflexion. So in the front, it's dorsiflexion. Okay, but at the back, it would be plantar flexion. Let me prove it to you. What's the action of gastrocnemius? I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, it is plantar flexion. What's the color of red here? Plantar flexion. What's the color here? Plantar flexion. Yeah? And then here in the front, it's called dorsiflexion because it's pink. So the muscles, the fibularis longus, those things, tibialis anterior, to be more specific, would be pink. Now, Steph, what's going to happen with the heels? Okay? Unfortunately, it would be opposite. I would color the front extension of the toes in the front. Okay? The reason is we extend our toes. And then for the foot, I would be coloring them purple. Cannot be seen here, but hopefully you can. Now, Steph, make me understand again. You can pause and repeat what I said, but to summarize it, what do I mean by everything? Meaning to say, flexion, for legend, flexion is purple, extension is green, plantar flexion is red, dorsiflexion is pink. Now, whatever I colored on purple, meaning to say whatever muscle is located there will be doing flexion, depending on the joint. Like the biceps brachii, like the forearm flexors, like the finger flexors, like your abs muscle. All of them are doing flexion of the trunk, flexion of the shoulder, flexion of the elbow, flexion of the fingers. Even the hip, iliopsoas, right? At the back, it's purple. What does it mean? Meaning to say the hamstrings, like biceps femoris, your semitendinosus, semimembranosus, all of them are doing flexion of the knee. However, you see the circles the yellow circles that I'm adding along the way, okay? I'm going to say that that's an overlap because of some muscles having a specific insertion or origin of some sort. So you have that at your disposal. Now, whatever you see green is doing extension. So like in the back, we have triceps, common extensor muscles, the extension of the hand, your erector spinae, your glutes, and even your front side, the extension of the knee and extension of the toes. It means it's doing extension depending on the joint. So wherever you see the green colors, wherever you see those green colors, that's whatever muscle group is located there, it's doing extension. Plantar flexion, in the other hand, wherever you see red, that's a muscle that does plantar flexion, like gastrocnemius, soleus, plantaris, that muscle group, and dorsiflexion like tibialis anterior and whatever is in around your anterior shin or anterior tibia, that's doing dorsiflexion. So again, are you still with me on this? Please feel free to stop, pause, figure it out. Okay, so there's that. Perfect. Now let us go and continue with the remaining ranges of motion. Now I'm going to be returning this orange line. Okay, I'm going to be returning this orange line again for your for clarity purposes. Why? Okay, because let me pick a very nice color here. I'm going to pick brown. I'm going to pick brown for adduction or medial rotation for brown. And then sky blue for abduction, okay, or lateral rotation. Now, let me explain. If the insertion of the muscle moves towards the midline or the orange line, it means it's doing a deduction. That's another way of saying it, okay? If the insertion is moving away from the midline, then it's going to be abduction or lateral rotation. Let me clean this up a bit in the top, just the top part. I'm going to use this one. Let me clean it up a little bit here on the top to make way for the pectoralis muscle, okay? So the pectoralis muscle is originated, this would be the origin, okay? This would be the origin of pectoralis muscle. I'm gonna highlight that here. This is origin of pec major, which is the lateral side of the sternum and the medial clavicle. And then it inserts, this muscle would insert, it would be completed all towards the crest of the lesser tubercle in the shoulder. Okay, so this would be the insertion of the muscle, which is the lesser tubercle at the crest level. So it's going to be around here. Now, what did I say? If the insertion, which is this one, if the insertion moves towards this, or the orange line or the midline, what would be the answer? It would be a deduction or medial rotation, because those ones are very, very similar. So again, if the insertion of a muscle goes, okay, goes towards this orange line, like this one, this muscle that I'm highlighting at the moment, when you move it, when you do medial rotation, it's going to move towards the midline. And if that happens, what's that action? Medial rotation. It will make sense. I'm going to stand up here and show you, right? This is the insertion, as you can see. Now, I'm going to move to medial rotation. Where is my arms going? It's going towards my midline. So do you understand what I'm trying to say? Now, let's go a little bit at the back. Let's say we have an external rotator, which is the infraspinatus. Infraspinatus would be around here. This would be the origin, and then it's going to wrap around on greater tubercle. Okay, greater tubercle of the humerus. So now, because it's in the greater tubercle in the humerus, if you're going to think of it, if you're going to do external rotation, okay, from the front, if you're going to do external rotation, where is your arms going? Is it towards the orange line, the midline, or going out? It is going outwards. So meaning to say, it proves my point that if the insertion or the joint moves towards the midline, the action would be adduction or medial rotation. And then if it moves outwards, then it's abduction and lateral rotation. Okay, give me an example. Let's say deltoids. Deltoids' origin would be the spine of the scapula, acromion, and the clavicle here, right? And it inserts on the deltoid tuberosity. Now, if you're going to compare, if we are going to move our hand away from the body, is my hand still technically closer to my middle? No, because it's going away. But now let's talk about something in adduction. What happens? You would bring the muscle going in. So that's why if the joint or the body moves towards the middle, it's adduction or medial rotation, and abduction and lateral rotation if it goes away. Steph, how about going side to side, those things like that? Then it would be lateral flexion. Okay? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, every part of this body has a muscle group, and whatever I highlighted here explains the action of each muscle groups. Yes, there are other muscles involved in this, but this is just a way of memorizing. Because now, let me get into the actual strategy for the test. Okay? If they tell you to stretch the biceps brachii and you forgot, you just can't think of what to do. You can think of this diagram and think from the neck down to the hip, including the arms, everything is flexion. So biceps brachii is going to be in this location. It's on my anterior part of the body. So the action will be flexion. So if they're going to ask you, do strengthening, isotonic strengthening or isometric strengthening on biceps brachii, you know that you should be doing flexion. Steph, how about coracobrachialis? Well, let me ask you this. Where in this diagram coracobrachialis belongs? Can I give you 5 seconds? Is it going to be in the front or at the back? Yes, it's going to be at the front. And because it's at the front, now you have to ask the question, where exactly in the front? Is it going to be in the lower limb or upper limb? Because from hips up, it's going to be flexion, and from hips down, it's going to be something else. So think, where is coracobrachialis? Brachialis meaning hand. Coraco is coming from coracoid process. So it's going to be in the front. So it's going to be doing shoulder flexion. You know what I mean? Do you see how you're going to be? So let's say, now remember they were saying about equipments. So let's say they're going to say, okay, I want you to do a strengthening using dumbbell on the biceps brachii. Think, what should you do? I'll give you 5 seconds. Done. What is it? You're gonna do flexion of the shoulder using the dumbbell. Steph, what if they say triceps strengthening using resistance bands? Think, 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 think. 5 seconds. Done. Now, think, huh? Think. Because, remember, whatever is at the back side is doing extension. So it means you need to do the resistance band exercise, doing extension of the shoulder to activate that strengthening of the muscle. You don't have to think beyond. You just need to make sure you know where each muscle is located and what group they belong and map it out like this. It's going to be a little bit easier. Now, Steph, how about the stretching? Then, what you're going to do is think about the map again. Look at the map. Think. Let's say they want you to do a stretching of your pronator teres. Now, you're going to look at your arm. Where in my body is pronator teres? Is it at the back or at the front? I'll give you 3 seconds to answer. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. It's at the front. So because it's at the front, with the common flexor muscles, I know you can do supination with it, but if you're having a hard time, just simply stretch it the opposite of what the action is. So because it's located here in the front, what you're going to do is instead of doing the action, you do the opposite. You stretch it. And that's how you figure out the stretch itself. Find the action and do the opposite of that. Are you still with me? Hello? Do you understand? For you to figure out the stretch, find the action of the muscle and do the opposite of that. Easy peasy. Okay? And then when you're looking for strengthening, figure out what muscle it is, figure out which muscle group it belongs, map it out like something like this, and do the action of that muscle. How about range of motion and stuff like that? Well, that's another category that you have to learn, but my best suggestion is to always familiarize which actions are applicable for each joint. And yeah, that for me is the best study trick for range of motion. So you need to be aware of the differences of flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, lateral rotation, medial rotation, all those things you need to understand properly. Without that, it's going to be a little bit harder for active resistive exercises. Okay? So, let me summarize what's the strategy in studying for station number 1. What are your study strategy? Number 1, group muscles together. The purpose of grouping muscles together, especially via actions, will help you figure out what's the main action of each muscle and how you're going to strengthen it. Because if you know the action and you put resistance to it using dumbbell, kettlebell, so on and so forth, you're going to know what's the strengthening. Okay? Obviously, you need to also understand the differences between eccentric, concentric, isotonic, isometric kind of stuff for you to figure out which exact strengthening exercise would they do. But the action, knowing the muscle action of each muscle group will help you. So that's why group muscle together via actions. Now, also know the opposite of each actions. So what do I mean by this? For example, if we're talking about biceps brachii, right, and its action is flexion of the GH joint, we need to know this. So what's the opposite? It's extension. Okay? For a quick cheat sheet, remember flexion to extension. Okay? Then abduction to adduction. Then medial rotation to lateral rotation, or internal rotation and to external rotation. So if you remember these 3 things, at least it would be easier for you to remember the stretch. Meaning to say, if they give you a muscle that's doing flexion, the stretch would be extension. If they're giving you a muscle that does abduction, then the stretching would be adduction. If the muscle they're going to give you is lateral rotation, then the stretching would be medial rotation. It would be the opposite. Okay, so that would be my tips for station 1 strategy. Knowing your group your muscles together, knowing their actions, and learning how to do exercises using the equipment provided to you in the exam. So for me, that's the best way to perform for station number 1. So if you do like this video, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I would post my website below and my IG if you do have any questions about how I did that, everything that I showed you. Please feel free to DM me on Instagram, and I would find the best way to give everything and anything I know. Just reach out to me anytime. Again, my name is Steph, the massage therapist, and watch for my second video, which would be the next stations for the OSCE preparation. That's it. Bye.